Hey everybody, how's it going? Today we are going to discuss the changes that are coming with the 1.4 update for The Division. And I know my video's a few days later than most. I'm still getting used to the whole editing. It has been quite a long time since I have edited anything, so I lack most programming, and that will be rectified once I start growing. So for now, it just is going to take me a little bit of time to get videos out. But that's a note for a different discussion. So today, we are discussing major points from the state of the game from Thursday, September 15th. And their patch notes, or not really patch notes, but their notes on how it's going to improve our overall experience towards the game. We're going to touch on some of the major points that they touched on and my whole opinion on each individual points. The whole time to kill, the difficulty of the enemies, the loot system, the fact that it is technically a shooter with an RPG element. The touch a little bit, since they haven't really released much information about the public test server. And overall, there will be a generalized conclusion from my whole thoughts of this entire topic. Where we're going to start. We're going to start on the public test server, since that's the slimmest of information until it actually comes out for the week of testing for their elite task force. And figuring out their whole update on it, but that's not going to be able to really go into any detail on that until it's released and the elite task force actually gets their time with it, which I was unable to apply for. I have too much in my life going on to be able to take time to travel. I would have loved to have been able to apply and to have gone. It would have been a fantastic experience and very rewarding, I believe. But as for the fact that I am a father and I am raising my child pretty much by myself, but that's a topic for an entirely different video. Whether or not that actually will get posted is yet to be determined. But back to topic. The public test server is supposed to be out this week. They said they're going to try to push it out this week on the state of the game. This week as in probably either the Tuesday or Thursday if they have a maintenance. And if that works, I'm preparing to be able to get into that. I have now purchased The Division for PC and am raising characters to be able to take part in this public test server for content creation purposes and to see how much The Division's going to change and if their claims on how it's going to work is going to meet expectation, which I am hoping it does, because I quite enjoy this game. And it is one of the games that I'm actually going to be able to consistently post content for until I am able to purchase a capture card, which at this point I don't know when that's going to happen, but once it does, everybody will be informed, and I will be able to relay other games such as Destiny and other games like that within my whole channel and discuss different things about each of the games. But Destiny's pretty much more the focus once I get a capture card, but that's a topic for another video, which I should be producing and putting out soon. But 1.4. Since we discussed the test server, let's shift focus now to what the devs are working on for 1.4. Let's start with time to kill. Right now, once you hit in-game, time to kill is just absolutely horrendous. There's really no rhyme or reason to how it works. And it just, at this point, doesn't work. It just doesn't work. There is no way around it. It doesn't work. And if we're ever going to get it to where it works, we need to do something about the enemies. As the level 35's time to kill, since it doesn't, on the graph they gave, doesn't exactly give a accurate on how long it takes to kill them. But anything that takes more than 2 clips that is not a boss, it's just insane. It doesn't work. It's not going to work, and no matter how hard they're going to try to make it work, it's not going to work. And the whole time to kill needs to be lower, more scaled, more kind of where they aren't so insanely powerful to where it takes a 4-man group just to take out a trash mob with getting pretty much nothing for their effort, which is about how it goes at the moment. And with all of that change that they say is going to happen on that, they're taking out the 34 and 35 enemies. They're introducing the world tiers, which will be talked about later. They are introducing new types of scaling, which is going to be more or less gear score based. Only way I see that it's really going to work is if they take the time, adjust their DPS, adjust a little bit of the NPC's health to our DPS, to where the enemies themselves aren't basically gods to us. They don't just have an insane amount of health, insane amount of power, and manage to be able to do whatever they feel like. As I feel that it's way too much to have one shotgunner. Before you can even take him down halfway, he's on top of you and can just one-shot every member of the team. Some might take 2, but still, they're down before they can really have any chance to react. And that's just way too much. So, they said they're changing that. Changing their time to kill to where it's more even. I guess that would be a good way to put it. It's more where the difficulty matches the rewards, and the rewards come from more than having to try to grind a difficulty that you may not necessarily have the optimized gear to be able to do, and end up having to get carried through an activity just to try to get the gear to do that activity. Which goes kind of into the difficulty and the loot of the way it is. The difficulty seems way too difficult for any casual average player that doesn't grind and just basically spend all their time grinding. Like, has a life outside of playing the game, which not everybody has, but there are plenty that do. And sure, I'd love to have that much time to do that, but I have other responsibilities, as I mentioned earlier. So, with that in mind, my whole thought on the game is based pretty much off of a solo perspective. Yeah, I love having groups, but having enough people to do so consistently, especially after moving to the PC and having nobody on the PC as friends to have any kind of group with while I try to stream it. So pretty much everything I'm doing is at a solo level. Not much more than that, not anything less than that. Yeah, sure, if given the opportunity, I'll do groups here and there, but there's just enough people that don't have any type of communicative ability that it sometimes makes the whole group situation hard. It's not quite as hard on PC since you have the chat box, but with console, it was really hard. So, enemy scaling. Right now, the difference between a minimum geared character that's got enough gear, but not geared optimized, versus someone that's optimized in PvP, the gap is just way too great. Or someone like me personally, I like running a balanced skill build. My balanced skill build has some DPS, some relatively decent toughness, and skill power. And I use that as a support build. That's my primary build that I quite enjoy the most. But trying to solo with that, any type of content, it's not going to work. I have to make some sacrifice either in my DPS to get my toughness higher, drop my skill power a little bit to get my toughness higher, or do both to get my toughness higher. And still, by doing either or both, it makes all the content 10 times harder. And trying to get additional gear just doesn't work. I've done challengings, I've done different heroic modes, but trying to do so as a skill build, people end up like, oh, we don't need a skill build, so we need you to change your gear. I don't have gear to do that. So, I don't get chances as what some people do to get more gear. So I'm trying to rectify that, switching to the computer, getting as much gear as possible, and on the preparation for 1.4. But that's more my personal dilemma. On to the notes. Loot system, which is kind of how my personal dilemma goes into it. How they're changing is that you'll get the same loot, no matter what difficulty you do, to where you'd be able to use that loot to improve your character. It's just by doing a higher difficulty, or with more people, you get better loot. Or more of it. Not necessarily better. So, you can use normal or hard modes to get geared up enough, get more gear, get yourself where you like to be, have options, and take it from there. Which, personally, I like. I think that's going to be a much better addition than trying to make you have to grind heroic to get those 268 gear score pieces when you may only have 240s trying to do it and not enough anything to keep yourself alive. Which, overall, takes a whole huge portion of the game out. And that's a lot greater of a difficulty portion than anything else. So, then it comes down to the fact that this is a shooter. It's a cover-based shooter. Where somewhere along the way, particularly at endgame, cover-based got lost. Tactics got lost. Gun skills got lost. It's all a matter whoever has the best gear, no matter how many of you're up against, whoever has the better gear and the better DPS, the better toughness, is the one that's going to win, no matter how good your tactical ability is. You're not going to win a battle if someone has something better than you. Which doesn't work. There's no balance. There's no... And how it is now, high ends are almost detrimental to your build. I like this idea that they said they're doing and changing of that high ends and the gear sets are going to be at even tier. Because then it's not going to feel like if I'm going to use high ends that I'm basically losing out on a lot because I don't have a 268 piece. Or my 204 is being outperformed by this 268. Or the 229 sets are just too ridiculously different from a 204. What I would like to see is, sure, the higher pieces are going to be better, but that's expected. Just not better to the point to where a low, crappy rolled piece of the higher tier of, say, like a 229 high end, even though it has absolutely no use to your build, is better than that good rolled 204 piece. That just isn't going to work, no matter how many times you try it. Which is supposed to be addressed in 1.4 on the skilling of attributes, the skills, talents, all of that's going to get looked at to try having a balanced, much more fun and enjoyable experience for all. Which sounds amazing of the potential that this game will be able to achieve. So, that leads us to our whole conclusion of how we're going to hopefully see the game from the goal of 1.4. Gear set tiers will be on par with high-end items. Stats hopefully will get adjusted accordingly. So if you wanted to use or don't have a good 229, you could use a 204 and have it not hinder your build so far to the point to where you can't do anything. Which will be awesome. I will enjoy that. And just constantly having to try to min-max and farm just to try to figure out what's going to help better than anything else. It's just a pointless grind that makes particularly solo players make it not worth it because you're never going to get to keep the gear you get, particularly in the Dark Zone. But that's just the way the Dark Zone works. I would like to see that the enemies don't hit so hard as they do now, but that will be a topic for another day, because first they have to get everything else in the world fixed and more linear, more balanced, then they can tackle the Dark Zone. and figure out that mess. And make this whole game enjoyable again. Basically give it the proper shake, the proper line, and now that I've talked enough, I hope you enjoy this video. I hope that from enjoying this video, you will subscribe, and I will be able to grow this channel into what I believe it can be. So, on that note, you've heard me talk enough. For the next couple minutes, there's some gameplay left at the end of this. You can sit back and enjoy. And if you enjoy up to this point, why don't you go ahead and give it a like for me. Until the next one.